Well, week 3 was well and truly absolute chaos. A lot of injuries that we need to talk about. A lot of players that either underperformed, overperformed. We're going to talk about our panic meter. We're going to talk 1 to 10. Is it over for these guys, or should you remain calm? Do me a massive favor. Go ahead and smash that like button to show some love. Here's the deal. I'm going to pick one person who has liked this video and that is subscribed to the channel, and we're going to give away a 2025 team playbook on tomorrow night's stream. So make sure that you have liked the video and that you have gone ahead and make sure that you have subscribed. Okay, week 3, absolute chaos. What we have to start with, I think we're all on the absolute same page here. The Cincinnati Bengals, definition of a shit show in week number 1. Absolutely taken behind the shed and just spanked on the bottom just one by one. It's like, hey, Jamar, come here. Slap. Hey, T, come here. Slap. Chase Brown. Slap. Unfortunately, despite what Twitter people are trying to tell you, Joe Burrow is pretty important. Yeah, that guy Joe Burrow, last week when we were telling you, hey, losing Joe Burrow is going to be a big hit on Jamar Chase. Everyone's like, well, look what he just did with Jake Browning. Look at what T. Higgins did. He had a broken play for a touchdown. Unfortunately, guys, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, when you lose that quarterback, it is going to be incredibly important and hurtful for your offense. Jamar Chase was the only one who was not an absolute disaster class, but let's talk about this. Okay, so first of all, Jake Browning comes into the game. No, he's not Joe Burrow. All right, there was Twitter threads going around with people like, actually, this could be better for Jamar Chase. No, when you lose Joe Burrow, it's going to hurt the entire offense, which is what we said last week. Now, let's be real clear here. The entire offensive line in Cincinnati was absolute cheeks. Like, even if Joe Burrow was behind that offensive line today, it would have been better, of course, because he's Joe Burrow. He's got that lightning quick release, but it still would have been a really difficult task ahead of him. So Jake Browning comes out, throws 2 interceptions, pressured the entire time, and the run game just could not get going either. Chase Brown had 10 carries and 3 yards. Again, I know I am, okay, look, I'm 5'8", 5'9", 150 pounds soaking wet. I think if you gave me 10 rushing attempts, I probably could have gotten more than 3 yards. But the offensive line is absolutely dreadful in Cincinnati. The only reason Chase Brown didn't have less than a single point was because of his usage through the air. He fumbled the ball. It wasn't recovered. But man, 0.3 yards per carry. Thank God he had 4 catches. But certainly for Chase Brown season, it does not look like it's on. What was so enticing about Chase Brown was the fact that Joe Burrow was leading this offense. The defense was terrible on the opposite side. Joe Burrow was going to lead this offense, and they were going to constantly have to score. Well, you saw how bad their defense was today, but without Joe Burrow, there is not the same effectiveness on offense. Now, Jamar Chase comes out, has 5 catches, 50 yards, just 6 targets. Yes. Guess what? Like we said last week, when a defense has an entire week to game plan for your backup quarterback, things look differently. Jamar Chase, we moved him down our rankings. He was my wide receiver 9 after the Burrow injury last week. I think I'm probably going to keep him in anywhere from wide receiver 9 to 12 range. He lost the fumble. That's not something that's really characteristic of him. T. Higgins, absolute worst case scenario, just 2 targets, caught one of them for 15 yards. Let me be very clear. The only receiver on this team that's a must start is Jamar Chase moving forward. You do not have to start T. Higgins each and every week. It is completely up to game script and to matchup. And here's the worst part about this entire Bengals offense. You're like, okay, well, things can get better, right? Sure. Next week they face Denver. Yikes. How about after that? Well, don't worry. It's Detroit and then just Green Bay. So at least 2 out of these next 3 games, you're looking at that defense and thinking, my God, could things get even worse? So panic level on the entire Bengals offense. Let's just remove Jamar Chase for a second. My panic level would be a strong 7 out of 10, I would say. They're going to be better, but this was rough. Now, as far as Jamar Chase goes himself, I'm going to put that panic level at a 5 out of 10. And let's be very clear. Jamar Chase is going to be better in the season, okay? This is not going to be what we expect from Jamar Chase each and every week. But no, doesn't matter what people on Twitter were telling you, Jamar Chase does not have the same upside he did with Joe Burrow, okay? So it's a 5 out of 10. And the reason we're saying that is because if you have any dream of him finishing as a wide receiver 1, I'm sorry, I have to be real and honest with you, that dream is dead. move on, okay? You want him to finish as a top 15 wide receiver now. That should be your expectation. All right, let's talk about James Conner. This is really sad. This is really difficult. We talked about this on the channel this year, but in 2024, there was like a historically low percentage of number one running backs going down with an injury. And there was some sense that, hey, there could be a return of these major injuries. And we don't wish that on anyone, like, to be very clear, but we got really lucky last year in 2024. So James Conner goes down with an injury versus San Francisco 49ers. This is about a 10 out of 10 panic, as in, I think we could be in a situation where he's going to be out for the entire season. Now, you're not going to see anything graphic here, but this is the play that it happened on. You can see his knee is getting twisted. On other angles, it gets a little bit more graphic. Now, according to Jeff Mueller, who's one of our most trusted doctors here, he says concern for right MCL and other parts of the knee that could be injured. So it looks quite serious. By the time you're watching this, you'll know if it's either season long or if it's just a stint on the IR. But I would say this is a 10 out of 10 panic, because no matter how you chop this up, no matter how you look at this, the reality is you're going to be missing James Conner for a significant period of time. Whether that is the rest of the season, which is what I would kind of lean on after seeing that. I think he's probably gone for the rest of the season, or it's for an IR stint. Either way, he's going to be gone for a significant period of time. If you own Trey Benson, the natural reaction is to say, well, yes, Trey Benson looks like he could be a true league winner. So to anybody out there who owns Trey Benson, you may have just gotten a free top 20 running back rest of season. And to anybody who owns James Conner, I'm sorry, maybe a moment of silence. Okay, we got to move on. How about Mike Evans? Another person that is potentially going to be looking at a long-term injury stint here. Now, here in week number 3, he started off really hot, caught the touchdown, 13 fantasy points. Things were looking absolutely on top of the world. But then, unfortunately, as we all know, he went out with that hamstring injury, right? You saw him as he was walking into the locker room. He throws the helmet off. It doesn't seem like a non-serious hamstring, right? And, Deepak here on Twitter says his history plus age makes this a riskier injury. They're probably going to be even more cautious with him. This is a team that is undefeated so far through 3 weeks. Emeka Egbuka, his stock is going to go up. Jeff Mueller talking about how, you see Mike walking off the field. It does not look like a mild hamstring. You can see him limping significantly. He cannot really put much pressure on. It's very difficult for him to walk off the field. I would be shocked if this is not an IR stint. I would be absolutely shocked. So to anybody out there who owns Mike Evans, I'm sorry. I know this isn't like what you want to hear. I can totally understand that that's not what you want to hear. But the reality is Mike Evans is probably going to be out for a significant period of time. So my panic level is probably a 9 out of 10, because you're not losing him for the season, obviously, with the hamstring, but it is still a significant loss to your fantasy football team, especially as you're needing to get wins on the board. Let's talk about Terry McLaurin. It was a weird game. He almost had that touchdown, right? And the offense didn't look terrible under Marcus Mariota, but obviously it's not going to look the same with Jaden Daniels. You also have to factor in the fact that this was a blowout for Washington. They were, they had this game in hand. They weren't really worried necessarily, about losing the lead. They were able to run the ball out in the second half. So we weren't exactly sure what that offense is going to look like, with a Jaden Daniels involved, or if they're in a scenario where, they are down in a game and they need to come back. So this was just not a great game script for Terry already, but then he leaves the game with a quad injury. Now, would he have come back if it was a closer game? We don't know. We'll find out more as, the week goes on. But right now, this injury does look like he could miss time. Whether that's a couple weeks or an IR stint, we'll have to kind of wait and see. But man, if you drafted Terry McLaurin, it is frustrating, because ultimately you were like, okay, could this be Brandon Ayuk 2.0? I think we were all thinking that. Could this be Brandon Ayuk 2.0, where essentially because of the holdout, there's some more concern that potentially he's just not going to get off to a hot start. And, Jeff Mueller actually talks about this in a tweet. He says, soft tissue injuries are the biggest concern for players coming off an extended missed time in camp and preseason. So Terry McLaurin might be the latest victim of that. Not exciting, but it is reality. Let's talk about CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb finished today with 0 fantasy points. Put a goose egg up. Now, that's not his fault, though. Let's be real. That is not his fault whatsoever. Unfortunately, the Cowboys decided to use him as a running back. Why? I don't know. Yeah, not really smart to put your, I think, what, 150 plus $1 million man as a running back. They lined him up in the backfield, gave him a carry, and then he had his ankle kind of twisted up on. Jeff Mueller says, doesn't look good. Concern for left high ankle sprain and looks like a high level of torque. They're hoping he avoided a fibula fracture. I don't think it was a fibula fracture. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, you could be watching this later and be like, yeah, it was a fibula fracture. But it looks like a high ankle sprain. The fact that he tried to come back into the game, some of you know, as unfortunate as it is, I mean, that's a real panic level. I don't think we can sit here and say that there's no panic on him. I would say like 5 out of 10 because you are probably going to miss him. Let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. Now, Ashton Jeanty is in a very difficult position, right? Honestly, in my humble opinion, a lot of the issues with the offense are really not on him, right? I mean, it's funny. You look at some of the tweets that were sent out today, but shout out to Sean David here who says what Ashton Jeanty is seeing so far today. And basically, it's just him versus the entire Commanders defense. And that's what it felt like because every time he touched the ball, the Commanders were right there in his grill, giving him the business, okay? And this is just the reality of Ashton Jeanty being on the Las Vegas Raiders. Terrible offensive line, an offense that has no cohesion whatsoever. He has to be doing more than the average running back. And it's just not ending up with any success. I mean, you can see, flashes of brilliance here. Just absolutely giving the defense, putting them in the ice tub, right? But the reality is he can only do so much behind such a stagnant offense and a stagnant offensive line. So for Ashton Jeanty, we're going to probably put the panic level at like a 4 out of 10. This offense should be better, but you drafted him to be a league winner, and right now we're just not even sure if he's going to finish as a top 12 running back. That's a hard reality to face, but it is a reality that you have to acknowledge at this point. Guys, I appreciate you so much for watching the video. Do me a massive favor. Go ahead and smash that like button. Again, if you're just joining, we are going to actually give away a 2025 team playbook, which is a customized review of your fantasy football team. Now, you can get your team playbook. You can enter the giveaway by liking the video and making sure you're subscribed. And then on tomorrow night stream, we'll give that away to one of you guys as a thank you. Okay. So moving on from Ashton Jeanty, and let's go to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, both at different levels of panic. This is going to sound really controversial, but I would actually argue that there is more panic in my mind for Travis Hunter just because the involvement is just not there whatsoever. I mean, let's have a look. Today, for example, 2 targets. That's it. Just 2 targets. Every single week. The target share has gone down. The snap share is going down. He's only playing in 11 personnel. He's not out there in 2 wide receiver sets, right? So from 8 targets in week 1, that looked great, to 6 targets to 2 targets. They've had some injuries on their defensive in their defensive backfield, right? Their secondary, and he's having to kind of play a bigger role on defense than any of us had anticipated. The offense doesn't look good. It's incredibly stagnant. So right now, Travis Hunter is not a startable name, like not even a flexible name, if we're being 100% honest. This is not a guy that you can go out there and put him in your flex spot and expect him to even get you 10 points at this point. It's just not a viable strategy right now. You can see Travis Hunter playing less snaps than even a Parker Washington. Parker Washington, who's playing more in 2 wide receiver sets. They're kind of putting De'Ami Brown out there and Tim Patrick, and Parker Washington even getting in and out of the slot himself. So Travis Hunter to come out there, not even to be 3rd in targets with 2, right? He's like 4th, 5th in target share. That is not a comforting thing moving forward. Now, yes, Brian Thomas was not good. I mean, we got to be honest about this. Like, he wasn't good. He didn't play up to his expectations. He is dealing with the wrist injury. We don't know how significantly that is impacting his game, but he also was not good. He comes out there, 2 catches for 55 yards. Funnily enough, that's actually his season high in yardage, but only 6 targets. There was a couple catches that he could have made. There was a couple scenarios where Trevor Lawrence just made his life a little bit difficult. The reality is, all of the blame is not on Trevor Lawrence, and all the blame is not on Brian Thomas. This is a collective effort. This is a collective shit show. That's the reality of what we're looking at here. Brian Thomas, by the way, reached a top-end speed of 22.13 miles per hour on that 46-yard catch Shout out to Ian Hartitz for that. So you see the monster, big body, athletic speedster, that this specimen of a human that Brian Thomas is, but it's not clicking just yet. Now, I'm far more worried about Travis Hunter than I am Brian Thomas, but of course, drafting Brian Thomas in the first or second round is currently killing your fantasy team. So panic on both of these guys, a solid 6.5 out of 10. Let's talk about Drake London. It's not really Drake London that we're worried about. It's more the fact that Kirk Cousins is absolutely, not Kirk Cousins. Michael Penix is absolutely terrible right now. I mean, against the Carolina Panthers, Michael Penix came out, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. They had to bench him, and they actually brought in Kirk Cousins. Who thought we would see Kirk Cousins in week 3? Not me, not this guy. There's absolutely reason to be massively concerned about this entire offense in Atlanta, because if Michael Penix can't even be competent, not only does that hurt Drake London, that hurts Bijan Robinson, that hurts Tyler Algier, that hurts Kyle Pitts, that hurts Darnell Mooney. Now, the reports came out that they're not going to bench Michael Penix. It's still his job, but they were down 30-0. What are they supposed to do? But certainly if you drafted Drake London expecting him to have an opportunity to finish as the wide receiver 1, I think your expectations should be lowered. You know, you want him to finish as a top 12 wide receiver at this point. So the panic level, we're probably going to go ahead and say 5 out of 10. Let me know. Let me know what you guys think, by the way. I want to know if, there's a player that you think I'm missing here. Comment down below. Who are you the most panicked on? Let me know in the comments. Now, the only reason I'm talking about TreVeyon Henderson today is because I actually tweeted out and I asked you guys, I said, who do you guys feel that you're the most panicked about, right? We put this over on X and we said, hey, tell me who you're the most panicked about. And one of the names that was brought up was TreVeyon Henderson, right? Shout out to Dave Nomashi, longtime supporter of the show. Now, I want to tell you guys why I don't think you should be any more worried about TreVeyon Henderson this week than you were last week. So I know he comes out, 11 attempts, 28 yards, but let's be so for real. TreVeyon Henderson, even though it wasn't good, was the best running back in New England this week. It wasn't even close. All right. So yes, he comes out here and he has 14 touches, 11 on the ground and 3 through the air. He's a really great weapon through the air. We all know that. And 2.5 yards per carry, not great, but it's not like the other running backs in this backfield were so successful and he was just clearly not living up to expectations. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, 2 fumbles, exactly the concern we had about Ramondre Stevenson coming into the year, had so many fumble issues last year. He fumbles it twice, and one of those times it was on the goal line. Right? I mean, I don't think that this is going to tell us that this coaching staff is going to trust Ramondre Stevenson more moving forward. If anything, they're thinking, okay, this was an issue last year. It's an issue this year. Let's see what Henderson has. Antonio Gibson came in, another fumble, 3 fumbles from this backfield, and none coming from TreVeyon Henderson. You want to talk about little mistakes that TreVeyon Henderson is making that's keeping him off the field? Let me tell you what, there is nothing that TreVeyon Henderson has done this year that will frustrate this coaching staff more than what Stevenson did this week. Okay, fumbling the ball 2 times, that's a no-no. Okay, there is no excuse for fumbling the ball. That will inevitably be a very big problem for this coaching staff. So if you have any concern about TreVeyon Henderson, my concern is a 1 out of 10. If anything, this screams to me he's going to get more opportunities over the course of the next 4 or 5 weeks. This is a screaming buy, if anything, for TreVeyon Henderson. So, yes, you should be worried about Ramondre Stevenson if you had him and you wanted to sell him as a flex. That's not happening anymore. You should be worried if, Stevenson was the guy that you were relying on in your lineup. But if anything, this is wheels up for TreVeyon Henderson, in my humble opinion. Okay, let's talk about Calvin Ridley, not a player that we invested heavily into. I'm sorry if you did. The issue is a rookie quarterback. We've talked about this a lot on this channel. Last year, what Jaden Daniels did was an outlier. More times than not, and the math is about 3 times out of 10, okay, a quarterback can support a fantasy relevant receiver. About 3 times out of 10 over the course of their rookie season, 3 times out of 10, a quarterback can support a fantasy relevant wide receiver as a rookie. So last year was a bit of an outlier. This year, this is what we should be expecting. Cam Ward is not ready to support Calvin Ridley. That's just the reality of the situation. 1 reception, 7 targets. There is no synergy whatsoever. I don't know when this improves. We'll see what happens if Stingley is out there in week number 4. Maybe you're looking at week 6 as a banking matchup. The issue is, even for Calvin Ridley, Alec Manor is outperforming him at this point. Touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. Our stash of the week 2 weeks ago. How about that? Doing his thing. One of our editor's favorite player. But unfortunately, there's no synergy with Calvin Ridley, even on the broken plays. So, I don't know what to say. If last week was a 5 out of 10 for Calvin. It's a 7 out of 10 this week. It doesn't look good. This one is really tough, but Najee Harris, we do need to talk about Najee Harris. So we all saw it. Let's be real. We all saw it. As soon as the play happened for Najee Harris, we all thought the same exact thing. He's done. He's done. It's over. And that might be harsh to say, but you can't tell me that as soon as you saw this play, you didn't think the same exact thing. It's a damn shame. So awesome to see him come back from that firework thing and be a part of this offense. But as soon as you saw him fall, you said, it's over. That was my thoughts. I'll be honest with you. It's over. It's a damn shame. But this is the season ender for Najee Harris. It's done. So if you had Najee and you thought, oh, wow, based off last week, maybe Najee's a usable piece. Maybe I can sell him in a trade. First off, shout out to Najee Harris. I wish him nothing but the best in this recovery. But that's an Achilles, man. By the time I'm recording this, it's not even reported officially, but that's an Achilles. This is like Austin Eckler. When you saw it, you said, it's done. Now, inevitably, that is great for Omarion Hampton's fantasy stock. We're not trying to be insensitive here, but that is great for Omarion Hampton's fantasy stock. And unfortunately for Najee Harris, coming on a 1-year contract. He had a 1-year contract with the Chargers. What does the rest of his career look like? Does he ever have a serious role? I don't know. This is probably worst case scenario for his entire career. Do me a favor, smash that like button to show some love, guys. We have one more name that we really need to dive into here, and it's going to be painful for me to talk about this, but it is something that we need to talk about. That is Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Now, Bill was saved by a touchdown. I think we can all agree, right? Touchdown in the third quarter, that's ultimately what saved his ass, okay? Because if you go and you actually look at the distribution of touches here in this offense, Chris Rodriguez started the day, right? Chris Rodriguez came out here and actually had more touches than JCM. 11 carries compared to 8 for JCM. It's not like one was wildly more efficient than the other. You had Jeremy McNichols with the big rip-off run, and if anything, if you can sell McNichols for anything, you should do it, because that's not something you should expect from him. But unfortunately, all the signs were pointing to Bill Croskey-Merritt being their guy. It's a rotation. It is. All right. I don't know how else to say it. This is a 6 out of 10 panic for JCM. He will be startable in good matchups. And I do believe, here's what I will say. Over the course of an entire season, it's going to get better for him. He's going to have a larger role. Clearly, they're not comfortable to give him the entire role right now. But I do believe over the course of the year that they're going to give him more and more opportunities. So maybe this isn't a thing where, hey, you can start him straight away. But in week 7, 8, 9, he becomes a very reliable starter, in my opinion. So deploy some patience. Obviously not ideal. But this is also a weird game, right? We have to chalk this up a little bit. The Commanders score 41 points without Jaden Daniels. So we don't know exactly what the offense is going to look like with Jaden Daniels either. And we have to recognize that. But again, guys, I appreciate you so much for coming out here and watching the video. Do me a favor, smash that like button to show some love on the way out. I'd love to hit 250 likes on this video. Subscribe if you like the content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Nothing but love. Have a great rest of your day.